Hello, I'm Gus Downing, publisher and editor of the D&D Daily, and this is the LP News Network. We're here today with Hedgie Bartol, Retail Business Development Manager at Access Communications in North America. Network surveillance technologies continue to revolutionize the way retail professionals work, and not just loss prevention, but also with store optimization, operational efficiencies, and enhancements to the overall customer experience. With open and flexible platforms, retailers can bring together their video surveillance, physical access control, audio systems, and now add analytics to create a full solution that goes beyond security and helps grow the business. As the global leader in network video, Access Communications is driving the industry by continually launching innovative solutions to help you create the smart stores of the future. Hedgie, welcome.
Thank you, Gus.
You know, Hedgie, we've known for years the impact that surveillance can have on shrink and safety and security. What are some of the Resync technologies that help make these efforts more proactive and efficient?
Well, we're seeing tremendous growth in the analytics and the deep learning side of things. Our technology today, our surveillance is not just a camera taking a picture for evidentiary purposes later. These are intelligent devices, just like any other solution that is adopting and rolling with technology. So they have the ability to do things proactively for the loss prevention or the retailer in general, from a data collection standpoint, providing that business intelligence as to what is happening in your store. It's almost as if you had a human that could watch the entire store and track and take notes on what is happening as far as how many people came in, where they went, how long they stood at a particular area, and then perhaps drive marketing or announcements or digital signage based on not just where they are, but maybe who they are. Wouldn't it be great if you had someone standing in front of a display and then based on their age and gender, an ad were to come up that was more targeted for them individually. And also if you make a display of, let's say a display of new jeans or new shirts or what have you, you want to know that it is attracting the demographic that item is designed for. So having that intelligence and also the deep learning technology that's coming along, being able to educate the system and educate the technology as to what is happening. For example, and this is a little pie in the sky, but what if through deep learning you could teach the system that someone who is about to steal something does a particular pattern of movements, and then get an alert that this is a potential theft about to happen. So now you're being more predictive.
Behavioral analytics.
Behavioral analytics, predictive analytics, knowing what is not just currently happening, but what may be happening or may be about to happen.
The ability to really define the person in front of the camera.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks will say, well, analytics have been coming along for a while. We've known about analytics. Analytics have been out for years. Well, just like any other technology, it has taken a few years for them to mature and become effective and become accurate enough to be useful to the retailer. When accuracy on, let's just say, a people counting analytic was 75%. Okay, one could argue, well, that's 75% better than you had, but 75% is still not good enough.
Sure.
Well, now you're seeing, because of technology with stereoscopic cameras and better algorithms and so forth, you're seeing a much greater accuracy come with all your analytics, and that is valuable data for the retailer. So
really, it's the digital signage that's in the person in front of it that's really driving what they're going to see. Yes, and it's more targeted. Also utilizing and bringing in other solutions such as audio, being able to trigger an announcement because a line is getting too long, or trigger an announcement because somebody might be dwelling in front of a high theft item for longer than ordinarily would to make a purchasing decision. And also, years ago, the philosophy of loss prevention shifted from let's catch the bad guys to let's stop the theft. Let's prevent the loss. We're not about catching and arresting shoplifters. We're about preventing the crime from occurring to begin with. And so they started providing much more customer service and being present for the customer, which not only reduced shrink but also increased sales and brought value. So what if you could take the technology and be more targeted in your customer service? For example, a camera looking down an aisle, and in this aisle the average time it takes to make a purchasing decision is 15 seconds. And you tell that camera that if somebody's there for 20 seconds, send an alert to a manager so that they can go provide customer service. So it's much more targeted and efficient as opposed to a manager just roaming the store looking for someone they could be helping or taking care of. Real-time response. Real-time response. Yeah. in being extremely proactive in that regard.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Why not leverage the technology to enhance not just your security operations, but your store operations as well?
Any privacy concerns coming up as a result of this?
No, and of course that would be up to the individual business unit making their decisions on how they operate and how they do things. But the bottom line is you're not collecting anybody's specific or personal information. It wouldn't be any more data collection on the individual than it would be when you take their picture in any case.
So it's not tied into facial recognition or anything of that nature?
Not at this point. I mean, those technologies are out there, they're available. It's how they're being utilized and who they're being utilized by that would be, determine whether it's a privacy, invasion or not. Your general retailer and your general technology for that is basically just saying whether or not maybe you are an individual, or maybe you're saying whether, you're a male or a female, age range, but not collecting your
Generic.
Identifiable information.
Generic.
Exactly.
And nor are you collecting it and storing it.
Correct.
So you're dropping it the moment you use it.
Yeah, and you're just maintaining the data, the information,
Right.
20 people who are between 35 and 45,
Right.
things like that.
So what advice do you have for our viewers about how operations and marketing can work alongside loss prevention to gather internal support and really utilize the data they're receiving?
Well, I think you'll find that many loss prevention professionals are very good at that anyway, because loss prevention touches so many areas of the retail business. They touch store design, they touch HR from pre-employment screening and things like that, and training and operations. So most LP professionals are very good at working across business units. But the thing to remember is that as technology continues to develop and more things are becoming network devices and working on that same common protocol of internet protocol or IP, having those common tools means that you have common ground with your various business units. So being able to share technologies, interact and integrate those technologies to work together, provide not just the data for the LP professional, but also provide the data back to the business units and have that intelligence to know how operations needs to operate. But having those common technologies, that network technology, allows for that common ground.
It really was LP that drove surveillance into the retail box.
Absolutely.
But now marketing is seeing it such a huge revenue generator. I mean, are they becoming the leaders of the technology now? And how does LP make sure we're staying up to date with them?
I'm glad you asked, because I had actually had this debate with folks frequently. A lot of folks, especially from the analytics side of the house, will say that their focus is on marketing and merchandising and operations, and loss prevention isn't in the equation. And I argue that loss prevention is still absolutely in the equation. Loss prevention still to this day, and as far as I'm concerned for many years to come, owns the cameras. They own the cameras, they own the knowledge of the liability behind the cameras and where they go and what they're looking at and how they're utilized and how they're implemented. And so by taking those other capabilities and adding them to the tools that loss prevention uses today, that adds value to what loss prevention brings to the table. Any loss prevention professional can tell you that reducing shrink is great, and that is certainly one of the first and foremost objectives that they have. But if they can reduce shrink and at the same time, through their tactics, through their tools, provide an uplift in sales and operations, that drives value. Loss prevention, and I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but loss prevention is a very different security discipline from any other security discipline out there. Most other security disciplines are very tactical in their approach to security, right? If you walk into a bank, you might expect your product that you're there for, the money, to be behind 6 sides of steel. There might be an armed guard at the door. There might be bullet-resistant glass, and you have to interface with somebody to get to the product you want. If you had to go through those same steps within a retail store, you'd never go back. And so loss prevention professionals have to secure and protect that which also has to be readily available and easily accessible. How do you do that? You can't lock it up. You can't, if you had to go get somebody to unlock a cabinet to get a pair of socks, it would be ridiculous. So loss prevention has to be very strategic in their approach, and if they can then, they have a seat at the table because they have a bottom line responsibility called shrink. And every dollar they add back to that bottom line, or every dollar they save in shrink goes straight to the bottom line of the organization. So in my opinion, a vice president of loss prevention is essentially a C-level individual.
Well, and that executive has a learning curve because, being that marketing is right there at your door wanting to utilize your technology, I mean, you've got to learn about their job.
Absolutely.
And kind of broaden your scope and vision of how it impacts the retailer.
And if you look out there at the landscape, look at how many folks are in senior executive positions outside of loss prevention within a retailer, and their background, their career was through loss prevention. And they have a much deeper and complete understanding of a retail environment and retail operations than just about anybody else.
Yeah, which speaks to the LP executive, making sure they stay up to date and learning and becoming educated about the marketing perspectives.
Yeah, it's not, in retail loss prevention, it's not about guns, guards, and dogs. It's about serving the customer, protecting the customer, and protecting the individual associates.
As with many things in life, the actual implementation of new solutions can be really challenging, especially as the complexity increases. How do retailers turn these new technologies into reality and get internal buy-in for implementation?
I think it's just what you just said about continual education, learning. Things are changing every day. Technology is is moving at a pace that I'm in the technology industry. I can't keep up. So it's a matter of self-education as well as working with your partners, working with your vendors, as well as your integrators and the manufacturers, and really bringing everybody around the table. One of the things Axis has done is we've developed a professional services division. Because we recognize that technology is moving rapidly, and so we can't put the onus on any one person. We can't put the onus on the retailer, we can't put the onus totally on the integrator, and we can't own it necessarily ourselves. So our professional services team will sit down and help build the solutions, architect the design, and help with the implementation, and really kind of tie it all together for folks. Because we're at a whole new level with technology now. You don't just hang a camera, plug it in, and walk away. There are too many parts and pieces that can come together to really provide that holistic solution.
So your folks get with the LP executives and make sure that they're looking at the full spectrum of value in what's driven to the retailer, and can help that executive kind of walk that person through the process.
Absolutely. And between that executive, the integrator, and our professional services team, between all those folks, we have a much greater idea of what options are out there, and which partners and solutions and individuals need to come together to provide the solution.
Excellent. So, we continuously hear about the cyber concerns with the Internet of Things and adding devices to the network and mobile and such. What do retailers need to consider with these technologies that sit on their networks?
So, cyber is becoming more and more of a concern. There are many moving parts and pieces. The first thing is to definitely work with your IT department and understand what your company's procedures and protocols and so forth are. But realize and be aware, as you said, these are network devices. Any network device could have a potential intrusion point. So be aware that you are implementing IoT, Internet of Things. They're on the network, whether it's our camera, whether it's a thermostat, whether it's a door controller. These things need to be hardened. There are protocols in place, just the very basics of making sure you change the default username and password. If your router at home is still on the default password, we need
it is
to talk.
not.
Okay, good. But work with us, work with your integrators, and work with your internal IT department to make sure that you take care of things and close all the doors.
There really aren't any standards yet. I mean, they're just coming out for the Internet of Things. And the speed to market for products is what's really hurting the security efforts of most of these things that they're bringing to market, from what I understand, according to news.
Yeah, and not being an IoT expert, I can say that there may not be any standards for IoT, but there are many standards in the IT world for protecting and hardening your systems. Nothing's hack-proof, but you don't want to be the unlocked door.
Right. Well, with the IT security folks basically responsible for the IoT security, obviously, and a lot of these other devices, what words do you have for the LP executive? I mean, should they be involved? Do they need to be involved? Do they need to learn about it? Do they play a role?
Absolutely. And when we had our retail forum last August, we have the end user forum every year. We had a panel discussion where all my loss prevention guys in the audience were talking to their IT counterparts on the stage, and they had a very lively discussion about that, and one of the comments was, well, why don't you respond faster when we have requests from loss prevention? And they said, well, it's a matter of staff and priorities and so forth and so on. And my loss prevention guy said, well, why don't you hire more people? And the IT guy said, well, why don't you hire an IT guy? And
Excellent response.
It was a great response. And of course, the guy who's a great guy just laughed, and he's like, you're right. But the underlying message there was, it's a matter of working together. Why can't why can't you have an IT professional on the LP team, and why can't you have someone with an LP background on your IT team? And why
cross-pollinate the teams?
Yeah, cross-pollinate the teams and take down the division. At the end of the day, you're still under the same logo when you walk in that corporate office. So why is there a division between your two business units?
Do you really think the industry would allow the LP functions to hire an IT security executive on their team?
I think they are asking for it. I think that's what they want, and are realizing the value behind that.
Just a general question. A lot of the LP folks are now taking over e-commerce fraud. It's a natural kind of a fit. I mean, have you seen that as well out in the industry and such?
Yeah, I've seen some, and I think a lot of that has to do with what's happening from an omni-channel standpoint. And omni-channel is a buzzword. It's been around for quite a while, and people are still figuring out what it means. But as more and more retailers are starting to understand and realize how they play in the omni-channel space, obviously with what loss prevention folks bring to the table from an investigative skills standpoint, and being able to connect the dots and see the correlation and utilize things like their exception-based reporting platforms and things like that, it's just a natural fit that a lot of e-commerce fraud would fit right into that, because they can see those correlations. They have they're wired to think that way.
Hedgie, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And thanks Access Communications for the support over the years. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure.
Well, that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank you for watching, and until next time, let's keep them all safe out there.